Hello everybody, you are listening to the Box Office Brawler. My name is Jackson. I'd appreciate it if before this video starts you like and subscribe to my channel so you can be notified for new videos coming out. This is going to be a very big video. This is going to be obviously the biggest video I've made so far, and it's very important to me, this topic, because I think casual consumers and nerds alike can both agree that there is a Spider-Man that is the best. There is obviously Spider-Man movies that we find to be the best. We have our favorites, we have our opinions. It's time to settle all of that right now. Today we're going to be talking about why Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movies are the best, why they are my personal favorite, why he is the best Spider-Man, and why you should change your mind if you possibly don't think about this, or if you don't agree with me, which is perfectly fine. But I've watched these movies so many times over, and I've given this a lot of thought, and I believe that I was formed today to be who I am, partially because of these movies and because of the lessons I learned along the way. So I'm going to be breaking this down into several parts, and we're going to have a deep talk about why Tobey's Spider-Man movies are the best and why he's the best Spider-Man. So let's start with topic number one. The Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy is serious, genuine, and authentic. He in no way is trying to mock or disrespect any of his characters. I think he does so by providing rich writing, very rich writing, and very rich story and character development that all of these characters come across throughout the three movies. Each one of these characters, they all have very strong personalities and characteristics that are their base in the first movie. And as they continue by growing in their relationship with one another, undergoing serious hardships and challenges, and improving upon their weaknesses, they become better versions or more complicated versions of themselves. And we watch that unfold throughout the three movies. I can't say we saw that very much in Tom Holland's movies at all. We see some significant changes between Mary Jane, Harry, and Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker through his three movies. But could you say the same about Zendaya's Mary Jane or Ned? I don't think we could say the same about either of those characters, which suggests that Sam Raimi, he takes this very seriously, and he takes character development very seriously. And something else I really appreciate about these movies in particular is the main cast of characters isn't trying to undermine and disrespect each other at every chance they get. That's something we see a lot of in Tom Holland's movies. We see a lot of mocking, we see a lot of constant nagging and disrespect from the whole main cast of characters, just kind of devaluing and disrespecting each other by simple little quips or funny sayings, just slowly mocking and tearing down the ego of each one of the main cast. And I think that's completely unnecessary, and it as an audience, I believe we begin to lose respect for the characters that do that, and it makes them less likable. We don't see that with the main cast here in the Sam Raimi trilogy, and the times that we do, it almost seems justified because of the horrible things that happen between the main trio, between Mary Jane, Tobey's Peter Parker, and Harry, because there are some times when they do some really bad things to each other and it affects the relationship. So I believe all of that really adds to the value of the films. My second supporting point for these movies is that it houses important, strong, supporting cast with deep backgrounds. I think something that particularly fascinates me with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy is that we're not met with a lot of different characters. There isn't very many heroes, there isn't very many villains in these movies. And I think that's an amazing thing because we can really grow attached to the characters that we do see on screen. And there's only a few that are really prominent in all three movies. And of course, that's Peter, MJ, Harry, Uncle Ben, and Aunt May. Let's start with Mary Jane Watson. She is, of course, the best friend and first love of Peter. And she's such an interesting character. And the fact that she's constantly providing and going through a fluid battle of love, trust, and friendship throughout the three films. there's time and time again when both her and Peter put themselves out there because they love each other. And I think they've pretty much always loved each other, of course, up until like the middle to end point of the first movie. But they are both going through very important character growths and tribulations that are causing this horrible tension, which is unfortunately not letting this love to thrive. The tension with Tobey Maguire is that he has this massive responsibility on his shoulders being Spider-Man, and he's not sure what to do with it. He wants to be selfless, and he wants to fight, and he wants to save people, because that's what he's doing. In all these scenes where he's when he's on call as Spider-Man, he is saving people's lives. This isn't like fun little stuff like you see in Tom Holland's movies or Andrew Garfield's, where he's saving a cat out of a tree, that kind of stuff. He's saving people's lives. Cars are blowing up, horrible things are happening around the city, and he's doing these really important things to help people. He's saving people out of burning buildings, and he's doing so even just as Peter, not even just as Spider-Man. Really incredible stuff here. But all of this requires his time and his energy. And he's afraid that, one, he can't give her that time because he's so busy with that and with school and work. Of course he wants to spend time with her. But he's also afraid that bringing her into his life is a risk to her, a risk to her health, a risk to her livelihood. It is a huge risk because obviously we see time and time again she's thrown into the mix and almost killed by Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and Venom. So it seems like danger really follows him and her wherever they go, unfortunately, either way. But that is a huge problem, and that's a huge struggle between that relationship. And Mary Jane, she truly loves him, and she puts herself out there to be with him several times. And for different reasons, he shuts her down because of his responsibilities and because of the danger. He doesn't want to hurt her. And then there's times when she shuts him down because she's just trying to find happiness. And she's trying to get over him, but he just keeps popping up in her life. And it's this dance. It's a dance of passion, love, and struggle. And I think a lot of us have dealt with that in our own lives, with our own relationships, which makes this whole instance very relatable. Let's talk about Harry now. Harry is a lifelong friend who is always stuck up for Peter. And something I really liked about Harry was, even though Norman Osborn, of course, turned out to be horrible after he took the serum and became the Green Goblin, he was a good, leading up into that point, he seemed to be a pretty good father to Harry, though. And Harry really admired and respected him. And it might not be like the best example to use, but he stuck up for his father when he said those horrible things about Mary Jane, and when he acted rashly under multiple accounts, and he always looked out for his dad. And I really admired that, and I respected that. Even though Norman was doing the wrong thing, Harry loved his father. And I think it's so important to see this on screen and to see the importance of family and the bond of father and son, because we don't really see that at all in movies nowadays. We definitely don't see it in superhero movies. And there's, of course, more to that character, but that's just something I always admired about him. A big turning point for Harry is, of course, Norman dying. And he's caught in between in this struggle himself. The struggle is Toby, Peter, is his last friend, the last bit of family he has, pretty much next to Mary Jane, after his father dies. But he knows that Toby, Peter, is friends with Spider-Man because he takes his picture. He hates Spider-Man now. He hates him, and he wants to avenge his father. Toby is really the only way for him to avenge his father. Toby knows Spider-Man, supposedly, because he's able to get all these pictures of him. So he's in this battle, this internal struggle of being friends and family with Peter, but also being resentful and trying to fight that resentment because Peter could help him out. He could help him avenge his father, but he's not doing it. And of course, when Peter is revealed to be Spider-Man, he is met with incredible grief and incredible hate and anger. And Peter does some really stupid things afterwards. But regardless of all of that, he turns and he does what's right. And he helps Peter save Mary Jane. And in the end, he sacrifices himself for Peter. Regardless, even after all of that happens, he sacrifices himself. And that just shows you how selfless of a character he is. And I think we get a tremendous growth through that character. Next up, let's talk about Aunt May. Aunt May was definitely a favorite of mine. Motherly, loving figure that inspired a lot of really important virtues and values into Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. She inspired compassion, empathy, selflessness, and forgiveness. She was the base inspiration for a lot of these values, and she delivered a lot of these through really important talks that she would have with him. And I believe she actually knew that Peter was Spider-Man throughout a majority of the duration of the movies. But she encouraged and inspired greatness in Tobey, and she was really the only one that recognized his effort to do the right thing on a constant basis. Mary Jane, Harry, the public, a lot of people, they didn't really see what she saw. She was the only one that really admired and loved Peter and saw all the good that he did and how hard he tried. She noticed this, and you could see that and understand that just by the way she talks to him and the very important dialogue that she delivers throughout the movies. And she has some really strong verses that I'll definitely have to show in this video at some point. But lastly, we have Uncle Ben. Of course, he gives us the most iconic line in history. With great power comes great responsibility. But more than just that line, he represented a strong fatherly figure that provided for his family and that was human, that saw the humanity in others. He saw the humanity in Sandman. He saw the humanity, and when I mentioned Sandman, I'm talking about Flint Marko, of course, when he held Uncle Ben up at gunpoint. He gave him a chance to put it all away. Go home. Just go home. You don't need this. Just go home. He gave him that chance. He saw the struggle in him, and he saw that he didn't have bad intentions. He also saw the humanity in Tobey and Peter. He saw that he was changing and that he was worried that maybe he'll change into a man that isn't the kind of person that Tobey wants to be. He also saw the humanity in Aunt May, and he saw the humanity in Flash Thompson. He advocated for Flash, a bully of Peter's, because he knows that Flash, although he's a bully, he most likely is dealing with his own trauma, and he's most likely compensating for evils that have been done to him in his life and the way he's been treated. And all of this is just very important, very apparent in his dialogue that he delivers in these films. My next point is that these movies showcase incredible, important values. I got a question for the audience. When was the last time that you can remember a present-day Marvel movie really supporting or trying to teach you a lesson? Especially one that you can actually remember, go back to, and implement in your own life. I really can't remember the last time it was. After rewatching these movies, I was reminded of a lot of very important values that I have as a Catholic, as a Christian, and that I think a lot of people just need to resemble either way, if you're of a faith or if you're not of a faith. That's something I find so powerful about these movies in particular, is that they really deliver a powerful presentation of the importance of upholding values. A couple of these I'm going to list for you right now, of course. Selflessness. I don't think there's any character that represents selflessness more than Spider-Man, other than Jesus, of course. Selflessness. We constantly see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man being as selfless as he possibly can, denying his own passions, denying himself, denying his selfish ambitions to pursue what is right, to do something he doesn't even want to do. Sometimes he doesn't want to be Spider-Man. Sometimes He would much rather be with Mary Jane. He'd much rather be having fun, studying, but he denies those things so he can be Spider-Man, so that he could save people, so that he can inspire greatness in others. Absolute selflessness. Another character that represented this so well was Harry in the movie. Of course, not all the way through, but in the end, he was completely selfless when he denied all of the hate, anger, and resentment he had for both Peter and Spider-Man, because he thought that Peter/Spider-Man killed his father. And even though he learned the truth that it was his own glider that killed Green Goblin, he still, all that stress and trauma that he had and the way that Peter treated this whole thing, he still was selfless, and he denied that, and he tabled it because he knew that there was bigger things coming up, and he knew that he had to help Peter to save Mary Jane, and he also wanted to help his friend, and he risked his life fighting Sandman. I mean, Sandman was enormous. He was a huge threat, and fighting Venom, going out of his way to do that, absolutely selfless, and he sacrifices himself to save Peter. That is such a huge thing. After believing that his best friend had been doing all this to him, that had been tormenting him, that had been refusing to help him find the man who killed his father, to sacrificing himself for him. What a powerful message. What a powerful message of redemption and selflessness. Another huge theme that I really admired in these movies was forgiveness. This is something we never, ever see in movies anymore. We don't see it in Spider-Man movies. We don't see it in Marvel movies. We don't see it in Star Wars movies. We don't see it done by A24. We don't see it done by Warner Brothers. We don't see it done by Sony. We don't see it done by Disney. We don't see it done by anybody. Forgiveness. We don't see forgiveness ever. That's something I absolutely adored about Spider-Man 3, the movie that gets the most hate. I think there's the most forgiveness and sorrowfulness and mercy in that movie than any superhero movie. In particular, when we're talking about that, I think the most powerful scene is Tobey forgiving Sandman, Flint Marko, the man that killed his uncle, his father figure, one of the most important men in Tobey's life. He forgives him on the spot. That death, although proved to be a huge building block for Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker character to grow into the Spider-Man that he needs to be, it was a huge detrimental loss to lose that father figure. And after going through this heinous battle between him and Sandman, and almost dying to Sandman as well, he forgives him. He says, "I forgive you." Wow. To be able to forgive somebody that does something that heinous, that's something we don't see. We don't see it anywhere, and it is such a shame. We also see that with Harry. Harry forgives Tobey for all this. He forgives Peter for the torment that he's been feeling. Although it wasn't really Peter's fault, he forgives him. And he doesn't exactly directly forgive him, but he forgives him in the way that he sacrifices himself so that Peter lives. I think that's forgiveness. When he's laying there dying, Tobey's saying he's sorry. And he's showing remorse, and he says that's all in the past. I don't think about that now. It doesn't matter. Wow, that's powerful stuff. And Mary Jane, I mean, she's also, in a way, forgiving both Tobey and Harry throughout the whole series. We see a lot of that. We see a lot of, subtle forgiveness because these characters, like us, make a lot of mistakes and do a lot of stupid things and say things we don't mean and do things we're not supposed to do. And she subtly forgives them. They all forgive each other of a lot of these things. And they move on, and they're friends, and they grow from it, and they learn from these mistakes. That was a mistake. That's just such a powerful message. Compassion. This movie, all three movies featured compassion, such a high level. We see Tobey denying himself. I mean, he's denying his deepest passions. He's denying every selfish urge in his body to go all in with Mary Jane, go all in with school, go all in with work. He's denying all that so that he can be Spider-Man, so they could do these things. And that's something we see a lot in the other movies too. I'll credit those, Andrew and Tom, with that. I still like Andrew and Tom. I think they have a lot of important values too, but I don't think the movies represented those values, and I certainly didn't think that they were trying to present them in an attractive light like these movies did. Another big thing here pertaining to values is there's consequences of sin. I don't think we see very much of that in Andrew's movies or Tom's movies. We see this in the very first movie, Spider-Man 1, when Peter Parker, after winning that huge wrestling match, he was supposed to be given, $3,000? The guy, he's got all this cash on the table, and he gives him, $100? And he tells him to get lost. Peter, as he was about to leave, a robber came, and he beat the guy. He beat the guy with the money, and he stole his money. And he ran off. Peter let it happen. He let him run off. And that was a selfish impulse. You know what? The guy definitely deserved it, but it was a selfish impulse, and that was vengeance. And it was met with a horrible outcome. Because of that, the guy escaped, and although he didn't shoot Uncle Ben, which was, the initial perception of what happened to Uncle Ben, that it was the robber that shot him, but it makes sense if you watch the movies. He was the reason why Uncle Ben died, nevertheless. And it was because if Toby had, stopped that robber and done the right thing, even though it would have been really hard to do the right thing, then Uncle Ben wouldn't have died. Wow, what a huge revelation that is. And there's definitely a lot of times in Spider-Man 3 when Peter Parker, he embraces the evil of the suit. And it only does negative things. When he embraces his most sinful, selfish passions, he hurts Mary Jane. We see when he goes to the club, he tries to make her envious and jealous by performing this huge dance and doing all these really stupid, mean, biting actions to get her attention. By dancing with Gwen Stacy, trying to make her jealous. He loses that friendship, and he loses a lot of that trust with Mary Jane. Obviously, that's the worst thing we see him do to her the whole movie series. And he hits her, too. And he realizes he has to change after that, of course. Another time he embraces the evil of the suit, and he's driven by his ego, he's driven by his pride, and he confronts Harry after Harry's the reason for, of course, him and Mary Jane breaking up. But he still confronts him, and he says these horrible words to him. Horrible words. His father never respected him. You were a disappointment. He didn't like you. And Harry, unfortunately, bought all that. And Toby, he beats the crap out of him, and he leaves him scarred. He throws one of those goblin grenades at him, and it burns half his face. Because of this, as the outcome, he, of course, loses the friendship further. He seriously injures Harry, and the distrust is even farther down. And when Toby comes back to try to get his help, if he hadn't done that whole thing, if he hadn't said those things and scarred Harry like he did, Harry might have helped him on the spot, and maybe Toby wouldn't have gotten into the position where he almost was killed like he was in the movie by Venom and Sandman. That might not have happened. It probably wouldn't have if they both attacked the two enemies at the same time in the beginning. These are really serious consequences that we see in this movie. My last point I want to mention is hope. There's always hope in these movies, regardless of all of the horrible storm of evil events and unimaginable turmoil that Peter has to deal with. He has hope, and he continues, and he strives to succeed despite all of the outcomes, despite all of the tribulation and trial that he's met with in these movies. He doesn't stop, and he doesn't quit. He sort of quits in the second one, but he learns, and he grows because of that experience. He has hope. And there's hope in his villains, too. And he inspires hope in them. In Doc Ock, even though he turned evil because of the chip malfunctioning in his neck, he came back, and he ended up saving this city from his own destruction. Harry, there was hope with him. He came back. He ended up saving Peter Parker's life and being a very integral part in destroying Sandman and Venom. There's hope in Sandman. Peter Parker, he pretty much, through his love and his compassion, he was able to turn Sandman, and he helped Sandman to realize that, there's better things in this world, and that you don't need to do, that there's always a choice to do what's right, and good things will come from making that choice. And that's when he forgives him too. And there's just lots of hope with Peter and with Toby. Very hopeful and always optimistic. And as we all saw, especially with Toby throughout all three movies, is there wasn't much going for him. He was constantly low. He always had low money, horrible finances. He had a hard time in school trying to measure all his time with Spider-Man, with his friends, with his education. And he had a hard time at home too, helping out with Aunt May. There was just numerous things. And the world was always against him as Peter Parker. But it's sort of the public liked Spider-Man, which was nice. But Peter Parker was never appreciated. That's something I think we all can respect and admire, is overcoming that obstacle. So all those reasons are why I believe that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man trilogy are the best, and that he performs the best in those movies. If you agree with me, please let me know in the comments below. If you disagree with me, let me know. I probably didn't make a very airtight case. It's the first time I've done a deep analysis in giving some deep thought into this. But I had a good time doing it. I thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. I hope you have a good time. Stay safe out there.